So what you honed in on there was exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, that 130 people coming up with this list of 100 restaurants would probably each have their own individual, completely different list.
Yes, and a lot of them might, from out of town, might have heard that so-and-so restaurant is good, so they're going to the restaurants that their chef friends or whatever are telling them to go to. So you get a little bit of a circle jerk that a lot of people are going to the same restaurants. If there are not enough people there are not enough restaurants from outside big cities on this list. I'm sure that's the same for every province. But there are some great restaurants, I can think of two amazing restaurants in Laurentians that just don't get a mention at all. There's a restaurant that's fantastic that's in Maruski, but she's been closed for a couple of years. And then there's some great restaurants in Montreal like Foxy, Le Quip Chef de Pêche, Au Pied de Cochon, Hogan and Beaufort, Tuck Shop, Graciela, blah, 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 that aren't on the list at all. So, the lists are great, and they're especially great for the people who make them, and the higher up they are, the better. And I think that Mont Lapin really is a restaurant that deserves #1 spot because the talent at the top, the two of the key owners, Marc-Olivier Franquier and Vanya Filipic, are fantastic at what they do. But on the other hand, there are a lot of people who are left out, and that's normal that they're not going to admit, they're going to keep on a brave face. But for me, as a former restaurant critic, I kind of think, Le Quip Chef de Pêche not there is kind of ridiculous.
So you mentioned Mont Lapin, which is, for people who don't know, the #1 restaurant in Canada, according to this list. You mentioned a couple of the people responsible for it. A couple who used to work at Joe Beef, right? And Joe Beef has still managed to be on the list all these years later. I'm wondering, when you talk about places left out, and you mentioned a couple of them, how many of these would be the kind of place where the average person could actually go afford to eat?
Well, the thing is about restaurants these days is that post-pandemic, there are not a lot of restaurants that people can afford to go. There are a lot of people who can afford to go to even low-end restaurants. I went to L'Express last week, and you're looking at $100 per person, and pre-pandemic it would have been far less than that. So these are all expensive restaurants. I mean, let's not fool ourselves. If you're going somewhere and it's a chicken that's $30, it's a lot of money. So prices have gone up. So all of these restaurants are high-end. Yeah, there's some that are super high-end that are going to be a lot more expensive. Tokay is going to be a lot more expensive. But, I can't imagine that there are any restaurants on this list that aren't going to be expensive.
So it's simply not accessible for the vast majority.
It's not on this list.
Nor is Snowden Deli, yeah. So
nor is Snowden Deli. It's a lot of restaurants that are really high-end. It's fine dining, but there's super fine dining, and then there's kind of more casual fine dining. So you're looking at like a difference between $200 a person or $125 a person,
Yeah.
Okay. I mentioned, too, it's kind of nice to see Montreal, though, with this many restaurants still, at the top or in that top 100. Has Toronto caught up to us in terms of fine dining, Leslie?
It's really hard to say because I've been to a few good restaurants in Toronto, and I always do, I'm always kind of comparing in the back of my mind, as we all are, Montrealers, we're always comparing everything about Montreal and Toronto. I would say in Toronto it's even more expensive, and Toronto doesn't have the same kind of level of sophistication when it comes to our wine list or the service. The food is very good almost everywhere in big cities now. It's just that you want to make sure they also have a lot of local ingredients. Toronto's kind of more or less no local cheese. Montreal, they're kind of 300 varieties. Quebec, 300 varieties of cheese. Toronto, probably 2. You know what I mean? It's just that there's a long way to go to catch up for many reasons. Suppliers, a lot of people are still getting their ingredients from Quebec because we've got a great supply chain. Years ago, I even knew a chef who was getting his fish from Quebec and his little vegetables flown in FedEx from Quebec. So that was a long time ago, and things have really improved. I think Montreal this really proves that Montreal is a very strong dining scene. But don't forget Quebec City. Quebec City is an amazing, much smaller city, amazing dining scene, amazing chefs, maybe even better ingredients. And it's also a little bit neglected on this list, Quebec City, for sure.
I was thinking about how our expectations are so different too, depending on the destination. I think your expectations in Montreal are going to be that much higher. But I'm going to ask you, Leslie, the question that you will probably hate to answer. So apologies in advance. Are there any restaurants on this list that you're like, that restaurant should not be on this list?
No. And I'm really critical. I'm very open about being very critical. There's not one restaurant I see on that list that doesn't deserve to be there, but I do think that there are others that do, so it can't be a list of 150 restaurants. But I'm more irked by the ranking. If I see a restaurant that's like in the 40s and I see a much better restaurant in the 70s or the 90s, that bothers me more. But I really don't see any restaurants that I say, forget about it. That's really not the issue here. It really is more about the ones that were left out. Yes, the ones that were left out I think are better than some of the ones that are on the list, but I can't really see any if there's nothing blatant there that I'm going, no way. Just no way. Everything there is very good.
So in terms of small restaurants, and I know we were talking yesterday when the list came out, and I think the story was that at Mont Lapin, they did something counterintuitive, right? They expanded during the pandemic, managed to stick around, and they're now in a bigger location. What about small restaurants that you sort of noticed on the list that might be worth eating at in this city?
Yeah, I'm going to have to pull up the list to look at it again, but there are places like Mochione that I really like. The problem is with small restaurants is it's really impossible now to get reservations in a lot of these places. So you're waiting a month in advance, which was something that was very rare before. So small restaurants are great. They're very hard to get into. Biba is a small restaurant. I don't know how long it is for a restaurant, for a reservation there, but there is a great restaurant in Quebec City called Batuto, which is not on the list, which last year won Best Restaurant in Quebec at the Laurier de Gastronomie. And I really don't know what you have to do to get a reservation there, because it's like the reservations open on the first of the month. It's a very small restaurant. It's like they're gone immediately. You're thinking, what do I do? Like I was there right at the beginning when they said they're opening reservations. It's like concerts, that if you get on site, like everything is already gone, Wow. So sometimes I think it'd be easier to get a ticket like at a Taylor Swift concert than at some of these restaurants, because it's just nuts. But yeah, there everything that is on the Montreal list is amazing, and I'm just saying that we could have gone even further in Montreal. And I do understand we have to have restaurants from all over. There has to be a restaurant from PEI. There has to be restaurants from the smaller provinces for sure. Places like Saskatchewan, Manitoba, they maybe could have more complaints than we could in Montreal. Mm-hmm. But we're very, Montreal, if anything, we're like known as a dining destination. It's like the reason people come here. You can see a lot of other great things in Toronto than Montreal, but our dining out scene is really key to this city. So it's important that it stays strong. So it's important for us to do well on these lists.
Which apparently we have. Well, we did this year, so there you go. Leslie, thank you so much.
And congratulations to the chefs and all the talent in the city and everybody along the way, the bakers, the everything makers, because, we all sit here and we say, aren't we great? But these men and women in restaurants are working so hard, and they're so good. So congratulations to them.
Absolutely.
Well said.
I love that. Leslie, thank you so much.
Okay.
Bye, guys. See you soon. Leslie Chesterman, former Gazette restaurant critic, on that top 100 list. You can find it online if you're interested. And good luck trying to get a reservation to Mont Lapin.
You're listening to Aaron Rand and Natasha Hall on the iHeartRadio Talk Network. Now, an update from the CJAD 800 Traffic Center.
Well, it doesn't take long for news to spread. Told you last time around that the stretch Ancien Combattant from the 40 down to the 20 was free and clear all of a sudden. Now it's getting busy yet again over that entire stretch as the closure remains in effect. 40 westbound Illitorp Bridge, even before it from Ancien Combattant to Vaudreuil-Dorion St. Charles Avenue entrance. You can still access Chemin de Senneville if that is your pleasure, but the 20 west is a very slow go from kilometer after Morgan until you hit not only getting over the Gallipo Bridge, but you can also throw in the Taschereau Bridge, and this until you hit Dorion after Chemin de Lotbinière. That's Route 338. That is some 30 minutes over there. The 40 eastbound Illitorp Bridge is open with that single lane at 60 kilometers per hour on the span. Double the fines if you get nabbed over there in a construction zone, and that's just over 10 minutes. The 30 Beltway Toll Bridge is on the house, and a great idea if you're coming from the city. Go take the 20 westbound merge for the 138 to the outbound Mercier Bridge and grab the Beltway. That'll be some 38 minutes compared to the 50 minutes it would take you from the 20 west of the 138 split all the way to the Highway 30 interchange. Looking for great last-minute gifts at Farmer Pre, you'll find gifts for them and get PC Optimum points for you. Shop in store or online. Exclusions apply. That's to shop locally, by the way. It's 60 minutes heading to the U.S. at Champlain. I'm Mark Shalhoub, CJAD 800 Traffic and Transit. Every 15 minutes, next to 245.
Oh, marvelously.
Prices are dropping.
Oh, marvelously.
Time to go shopping.
Oh, marvelously.
Go
Through all the heat.
Dangle your feet. It snows on repeat. Stormy
pay the tax this Boxing Day only.